So here's one of the most disastrous negotiation failures in history. After World War I, after the destruction that saw the death of some 20 million people, the Allied leaders gathered at the Palace of Versailles with one clear goal: make Germany pay. Their positions were rock solid. Germany must accept full blame for the war, they must pay a massive amount of reparations, and they must lose huge chunks of territory for what they've done. At the end of that negotiation, the Allied leaders got almost everything they wanted. On paper, total victory. But they completely ignored Germany's underlying interests. What Germany wanted was economic survival, national pride, and the ability to recover as a stable nation. The long-term result was that 20 years later, after hyperinflation, humiliation, and resentment, we got the rise of the Nazis and eventually World War II. This was one of history's most expensive negotiation failures, and it can be seen as the result of one of the most common negotiation traps that so many people fall into. And that is focusing on positions instead of interest. If that can happen on the world stage, just imagine what it's doing to your salary negotiations, business deals, or even arguments at home. So today we'll talk about the importance of focusing on interests and not on positions in negotiations. Stick around. So first, let's clarify the difference. A position is what you say that you want when you make an offer or a demand from the other person. I want $80,000 in salary. We need the delivery by Friday. No, we're not moving on price. Those are all positions. An interest is the why behind it, the real need or desire or concern that's driving your demands. So you might want $80,000 in salary because that really would fortify the financial security of your family. You might want a quick delivery time because you want to avoid a production shutdown that would cost you thousands per day. The way to think about it is that positions are the tip of the iceberg and the interests are everything underneath the iceberg. So here's the problem. Focusing on positions feels natural. We think that negotiating is just making offers and counter offers, kind of like haggling at a bazaar. I offer X, you offer Y, and then I counter, and then you counter, and we split the difference. It's simple, it's familiar, and it feels like real negotiating. But this approach is actually suboptimal and even dangerous. When you stay glued to positions, you become highly vulnerable to two key traps. The first trap is called the incompatibility error. This is when you assume that the other side's preferences are completely opposed to yours, even when your preferences and the other person's preferences are actually in part compatible. Take an example from a negotiation I was privy to between management and employees. This one was a mid-sized marketing agency where leadership and the creative team were negotiating new hybrid policy about working from home. Now, the negotiation hit a snag because leadership was worried that if they were to offer generous remote days, employees will push harder on salary bonuses and reducing performance standards later on. On their part, many of the employees thought that the management cared only about FaceTime and controlling them. But as we dove into the issues, we realized that both sides actually had similar interests. Management wanted to retain talent and be more competitive in hiring, and also have lower office costs. Employees liked working at the company, and they wanted to be able to focus deeply on their work without interruption. They also wanted to be connected to each other, which suggested they didn't want 100% work from home, and some office days would be helpful. So that was actually a compatible interest that was hiding among interests that were different. That meant that there was an agreement possible, but both sides made the error of assuming that the interests were completely incompatible. And so both sides were locked into extreme positions without realizing that they can cooperate instead of fight with each other. So a simple discussion about interests early on would have helped a lot. Both management and the employees would have asked each other for their main interests in this negotiation, and this would have shown them where their interests were the same and different. The second trap you might fall into when you focus too much on positions is called the fixed pie bias. That's the belief that the total value of the pie, the total value of the negotiation is fixed. That means that any gain for me must be a loss for you, and any gain for you must be a loss for me. That makes cooperation very, very hard because the logic makes you fight for everything and anything. Now, some negotiations are like this, there's zero-sum games, but most are actually not. So imagine this classic story. You have two sisters fighting over the last orange in the kitchen. Each of them insists that she needs the whole orange. So the mom steps in and, thinking it's a fair split, cuts the orange in half and gives each sister the half. One sister takes the half, peels it, throws away the peel, and eats the fruit because she was hungry. The other sister takes her half, squeezes out the juice, throws away the fruit, and uses the peel to bake a cake because that was her goal. Both sisters got what they wanted. One got the fruit, the other got the peel. But because they assumed that the pie, in this case the orange, was fixed, they needlessly compromised and they only got half of what they wanted, where they could have gotten the whole orange because they wanted different aspects of the orange. So in negotiation, we do the exact same thing all the time. We fight over the orange without ever asking why the other person wants it. A lot of the times, if we did that, we'd realize that they want the orange or whatever their goal is for different reasons. And so we could come up with a win-win solution. So how do you break free? Here are 4 practical research-backed strategies that you can use in your next negotiation. First tip is ask why. That's the most important question. Ask the other person, what does success look like for you? The way to start negotiation is by asking questions that reveal interests. For example, you might ask, why is this deadline so important to you? What would an ideal outcome on this issue look like for your team? Help me understand what you're really trying to achieve here. These questions are key because they are open-ended and they're collaborative. Before we start jousting by trading positions, we should start by understanding what we're trying to achieve. These questions also encourage conversation and mutual sharing of interests. Ideally, they also provide a roadmap for you to understand to what extent your interests are compatible with the other person or not. This will help you know whether the pie is fixed, meaning that your interest and the other person's interests are mostly against each other, or maybe the pie is not fixed and you can make the pie bigger by trading off issues that are not core to your interests but are core to the other person's interests, and getting issues that are core to your interests but are not core to the other side's interest. The second tip is sharing your own interests first. Be the first to open up and reveal strategically. That builds trust and encourages reciprocity. 95% of the people will reciprocate by sharing their interests with you. When people see that you're not hiding behind your demands, they're far more likely to reveal what they actually need. Obviously, don't reveal things that later on can hurt you, so be strategic. The third tip is always scan for compatible issues before assuming that there's conflict. Always check, on this particular point, do we actually want the same thing? In many negotiations, there are issues where both sides want the same thing, but they're different on how to get there. Recognizing that at least the overarching goal is the same is very powerful in taking steps towards win-win solutions. The fourth tip is negotiating multiple issues as a package if you can. Negotiating one issue at a time is not bad, but if you can bundle issues together, you will likely get more information about the other person's interest and whether they're compatible with yours. For example, talking about price and also a given timeline of delivery. You can talk about a warranty and also payment terms. Then when you are bundling issues together, you're watching for the other person's response. Their response will tell you what they care most about. That will be the issue that they always keep coming back to over and over again. That's important information for you because it will tell you if the issues they care most about are the same or different from the issues you care most about. So overall, for some reason, we think the negotiations are an exchange of offers and counter-offers. Maybe this is how the movies portray it, but the reality is that offers and demands and positions should come at the end after we've discussed our interests and we have some information about whether our interests are compatible with the other side. So the next time you negotiate, whether it's a raise, a contract, a home purchase, whatever it is, always pause and ask, what are the real interests here for me and the other person? You'll be amazed at how many impossible deals suddenly become possible. If you find this valuable, hit the like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'm dropping more practical negotiation strategies every week. I'll see you next time.